Hey guys! So today we're going to do this review. It's The Alloy of Law. This is a translation, as you can probably tell. It's translated as De Wet van Staal, which means, loosely translated, it means the steel law. I think they have made the correct decision to not exactly translate it, because otherwise it's de legering van de wet. And it's a word we don't use often. It's a word that's not that well known even. So yeah, point taken. This cover is not, I don't think the cover is that amazing. It's just, you know, it's wax and wane. That's about it. First off, I'm gonna tell you, full spoilers. I'm not going to do a spoiler-free review of this because, well, it's an old book. I think it was written in 2013, something like that. I have no idea, I'll check just to be safe. It says here is 2011, actually, but it was translated in 2014 in Dutch, so yeah. So it's over 10 years old, this book. And if you want the spoiler-free review, just skip to the end of the video. I'll post a timestamp in the description. Because I consider this book old. Well, not old, but I think most of you have already read it. I might do a spoiler-free review at a later time, but this will probably be the trilogy review. The Alloy of Law, The Bands of Mourning, and The Shadows of Self, somewhere before The Lost Metal comes out, so I think I still have 11 months. 10 months. Yeah, 10 months. But onto the story. I'll briefly summarize the story just to refresh your memory before I actually go into detail. So in the prologue we get introduced to Wax, our main character. We learn that society has advanced since being rebuilt 300 years ago by our friend Sazet, and it's now more comparable to late 19th and early 20th century America, or the world in general, to be honest. Wax, our main character, is something we did not see in Mistborn, which I consider awesome. He is a twinborn, actually. Which means that he is a misting and a ferring, having one allomantic and one ferrochemical ability. When you have both an allomantic and a ferrochemical ability for the same metal, you are called a compounder. This also brings an exponentially bigger effect when you burn a metal in which you have stored something, like we had with Lord Rule in Mistborn Era 1. He stored atium in his metal mines, so that was, I think that was youth, yes. He stored 10 years of youth in it, so normally, if you're a ferrochemist, you can withdraw 10 years of youth from it. But let's say he stores 10 years in it, and then he swallows the metal mines, so it'll have to be small, or he sticks them, he makes a dagger out of it, sticks him in his hand. Then he can also burn it, because technically it's in his body. Then from the 10 years he put in, he will get more. I don't know if there's an exact number mentioned, but let's just say he puts in 10 years, he burns it, he gets back 30 years. Something like that. I don't know for sure what the actual numbers are. I should check that out, but you know, something along that. Back to the story. So we find the prologue, and Wax is in a gunfight in the Roughs, and the Roughs is actually the Wild West version of Elendel, of the world of Scadrial. His girlfriend, named Leslie, is taken hostage by Bloody Tan. Bloody Tan is a man he's hunting. But the problem is, when he tries to kill Bloody Tan, just as Wax pulls the trigger, Tan goes like this, or like that, I don't remember which side it is, and Wax accidentally shoots Leslie in the head. Of course he gets mocked by Tan, who he kills immediately, this time on purpose. About a year after that debacle, so we first have a small story about, in chapter 1, about 5 months after, But the second chapter immediately starts again 6 months later. He turned himself into Lord Waxilium Ladrian. So he actually leaves the Roughs and goes back to the city in order to restore his house, because his uncle and his sister, I think it's Edward and Tenson, have both died. So he has to take over control of the house, but something strange was going on, because Edward, his uncle, I don't know what he did. Wax doesn't know what he did, but the finances are not that great. So in order to save his house, he actually sets up marriage with a small house, but it's actually I think it's Colmes. Sorry, it's a small house but very rich. So it's mutually beneficial, because, well, Wax gets money, and the other house, the Colmes house, gets a bit of a prestige boost, let's call it that. So he's going to Lord Colmes to arrange that marriage, but instead he finds his companion Wayne. He's his sidekick. He's also a bit of the comic relief. But yeah, Wayne then sets up the case they'll be investigating, which is about the Vanishers. It's a big gang. But in the meantime, there's his future father-in-law, there's his future wife, and with her comes her cousin, Marasi, or Marasi. I don't know what the exact pronunciation is. I haven't listened to the audiobooks. But she's not her cousin, she's her half-sister. Anyway, so a bit later they go to a wedding, the Yolen wedding. I don't know exactly who the other person was. But all our main characters are together. So there's Wax and Wayne, there's Marasi, and there's of course Steris, his future wife. During the wedding, there's a big shootout. The gang, so the Vanishers, the focal point of Wayne's case, actually show up there. They start robbing everyone, they start shooting. There's a few casualties also. But Wax, who's in there, he has renounced his guns. After we see that in chapter 1, he gave his guns to his butler. So yeah, he doesn't have any guns, but he got one he took Wayne's gun, gives into his instincts, and just starts killing bandits left and right. But he can't stop, however, the surviving bandits that have kidnapped some women, including his wife-to-be, Steris. A bit later, there's an assassination attempt by Wax's butler. So they go back to the house. They recover from the battle. His butler tries to. I think he tries to set off a bomb. Yeah, he tries to set off a bomb, and Wayne catches it just in time. He runs out to Wax. He puts on his speed bubble because, Wayne is also a slider. So he accelerates time greatly in his bubble, while the outside world is going at normal pace. I think he can compress 2 minutes into 15 seconds, so he can speed up time about 8-fold, give or take. By then, Wax knows what happens, so Wax gets caught up in Wayne's speed bubble. Wax uses all of his stored weight, because he's a ferrochemist, he's a twinborn, to become heavy as shit. They crash through the ceiling or through the floor, avoiding the big explosion, but Wayne gets burned in the back. He survives, of course, because Wayne is also twinborn. His ferrochemical ability is to store health, and I think that's in gold. So yeah, he spends a few days or a few weeks being sick, storing health. And then at a later time, he withdraws the health, recovering very quickly from injuries like they were never even there. So after that, they seek out some information, and they learn that the Vanishers' leader is actually Wax's old partner from back in the Roughs, Miles the Gouter. He's a gold compounder, so just like Wayne, he could store his health. but he can also withdraw his health and burn his gold metal mines. So when he stores his health, and he's got metal mines all over his body, he's got them on his fingers, on his hands, he's got them inside his body even. So he stores his health in there and then he burns it at a very accelerated rate, so he's essentially unkillable. He can regrow limbs. I think he can even recover from a headshot, provided he's been burning the metal before being killed. So yeah, a bit later they're robbing a train which is filled with a shipment of aluminum, and aluminum is unaffected by allomantic abilities. So when I say, let's say Wayne shoots a bullet at Wax, it's a regular bullet, Wax can just push it away. When it's an aluminum bullet, Wax cannot push it, and he just gets shot. So yeah, Wax and Wayne and Marasi intercept him when they intercept the Vanishers, and a fight scene ensues. Wax wins this first confrontation with Miles, but after that they go to a safe house just in case. That safe house turns out to be Renette's gun shop. Renette is a gunsmith, and Wayne's in love with her. But she's not. On the contrary, she hates his guts. So yeah, Renette gives him a not very warm welcome, to say the least, because she hates Wayne. But she also gives Wax an aluminum gun called the Vindicator, named after the Ascendant Warrior Vin herself, you know, our main character from Mistborn Era 1. After that, there's a scene with Miles and Mr. Suit. So we learn that the Vanishers actually don't operate by themselves, but they're funded by a bigger organization, of which Mr. Suit is most likely the leader. In the meantime, Wax, you know, back at the safe house, he deduces where they'll go next. He thinks, oh yeah, so they look for aluminum. Yeah, they had that aluminum train that they wanted to rob, but he didn't kill Miles, but he pushed him off the train. He steel pushed him off the train. So yeah, Wax says, okay, they're out of aluminum, so guess what? They'll need aluminum. Next train with aluminum is that one. I think it's called the Break Knot. You know, what's in a name. But yeah, they need new resources, so Wax obviously just makes the connection, and they start setting everything up. So Wax locks himself in the special wagon with the aluminum, while a bit further Wayne and Marasi are watching the train. Miles and his Vanishers try to rob the train. Wax ambushes them with an explosion. Wayne drops through the hole. A fight scene or a shootout ensues. It's a mixture of both. And the good guys win through a ruse, actually. So you have Wax, Marasi, and Miles. So our big bad evil guy, the Gold Compounder, who is essentially unkillable. All the bandits have been taken care of by Wax and Wayne and Marasi. She used a rifle. But the ruse is actually, they let Miles beat up Wax, while Marasi is hiding somewhere not that far from them, burning cadmium. She's also a misting, and burning cadmium is the opposite of what Wayne can do. Wayne can burn bend alloy, I think is the word. Burning cadmium actually slows time, so if we take the same rate as when Wayne, burns and quickens time, so let's say he can compress 2 minutes into 15 seconds, well she can do the opposite. So she can make 15 seconds feel like 2 minutes. So let's say they battle for 5 minutes, so times 8, that's 40 minutes. 40 minutes is a lot, but being beat up for 5 minutes is a long time as well. But yeah, this slow bubble by Marasi gives Wayne actually the time to gather the constables, the police, and rescue all of them, including Wax's wife-to-be, Steris. And after that, you know, there's the ending, good guys win, everybody gets celebrations. Miles gets executed, Wax gets a citywide pass to be a de facto vigilante, but when he's at Miles' execution, he notices his uncle, Edward. So yeah, Edward is still alive, It's revealed that he is Mr. Suit, and the only reason Wax doesn't attack, he knows Edward is Mr. Suit, he has made that connection already. He doesn't attack him because he doesn't know the location of the other women they kidnapped, because Steris wasn't the only one. There are a lot of women that have been kidnapped, and it's been revealed already in that book that they are trying to breed more Allomancers, just to build an army. And then there's the last few pages in which Marasi meets Iron Eyes, our friend from back in Era 1, the Steel Inquisitor. He had 21 spikes. He's also Kelsier's brother, and due to his Aetium reserve, he has greatly extended his life. Iron Eyes gives Marasi a little book containing a lot of information about hemalurgy, which was up until that point actually unknown. So hemalurgy was unknown. They knew Kandra existed, but they didn't know how. Hemalurgy, that art had been actually lost, and I think it was lost on purpose when Sazed or Harmony rebuilt the world. So yeah, that's the epilogue. That was the spoiler short story. So yeah, onto the review itself. I think it's a great story. Sanderson himself describes it as a Sherlock Holmes mystery with Clint Eastwood as the main character. I think that's a very good description, actually. Except with, of course, all the magic that's been integrated. Fun fact: this book actually started as a creative writing exercise for Sanderson himself while he was still writing the Wheel of Time. Yeah, he was finishing up the last few books after, of course, Mr. Robert Jordan died. So you'll have to see it in that light. I don't think it was meant to be a part of the original trilogy, so it's kind of a standalone book. While in the meantime, also setting up for Shadows of Self, for Bands of Mourning, probably also for the Lost Metal. But yeah, it shows a bit. The characters are mostly superficial. Every one of them fits into an archetype. There's Wax. He's the brooding main character, which is with a lot of inner conflict. But ironically enough, our most interesting character, Wayne, is actually the comic relief. But he's also very fleshed out. There's his past in which we learn that he killed someone, leaving behind children, that he hates himself. We get a lot of his quirks and tendencies that are very present in these books. He's also an alcoholic, which is not that hard in his case, because he can just drink and then burn off the effects from being drunk, with his gold metal mines and all that. He also doesn't really feel like he deserves to live, so which is in part the cause of his alcoholism after his debacle with the man he shot. There's also Wax. His entire character is actually made up of inner conflict, in that sense that he's still not overkilling his lover, and he hates guns, while he actually has to use guns if he wants to enforce the law. And there's also his torn between two worlds part. At one side of his family is, of course, nobility, from which he gets his allomancy. The other side is terrace, from which he gets his ferrochemical abilities. Neither his lover, Leslie, nor the two worlds are actually very, very fleshed out. It feels a bit shallow, but his wife, Steris, is just a damsel in distress, with some quirks, in that she is boring. Steris actually, she herself says that she's a boring character, that she's a boring person in general. As a damsel in distress, there's nothing really big about her. She doesn't get any lines. Well, she does get a few lines, but nothing that interesting. The big bad Miles, he's a good guy gone bad. He has his own. He thinks he's still doing the right thing, but he's not. So yeah, that's an archetype. And Marasi is the shy but really badass, secretly badass girl with hidden abilities. And the rest of the characters are just what they are, side characters. Very, very one-dimensional. On the other hand, we have his magic system. And as we know, with Sanderson. His magic system is impeccable. Even better, in my opinion, than Mistborn Era 1. Because we now have the Twinborn naturally, instead of being artificially manufactured by a full-on ferrochemist swallowing what's lerasium, that makes you Mistborn. Now they are actually born naturally. On the other hand, Mistborn people who can use all of the abilities, so who can burn all the metals, are very rare, and I don't even think they actually exist anymore. So yeah, there's that. There's also hemalurgy making a resurgence. I would advise people to read Mistborn Era 1 just because of this. Not because it's very complicated, I think. It's a lot to take in at a time. There's allomancy and all that, so there's 16 metals that have allomancy, there's 16 metals that have a ferrochemical effect, and of course there's a hemalurgic effect. But yeah, not only for the magic, also for the characters. The religions they have in modern Scadrial, so the Wild West time, are actually based on the mythology of Mistborn Era 1. So we have Vin, the Ascendant Warrior, we have Elend, the Final Emperor, we have Iron Eyes, who is actually death personified according to a lot of people. We have Kelsier, who is the survivor of the Piths of Hachin. So all stuff like that. Of course, Caesar, he's God, essentially. He has both creation and destruction, so ruin and preservation, reverse. He's omnipresent, he's omnipotent. Yeah, if you don't know these characters, it might be a bit hard to keep up, because there's also streets named after Lord Lesteborns. Yeah, it can be read as a standalone novel, but you won't understand a lot of it because they don't really explain it. The book expects you to know who they are. So yeah, the religions, the characters also struggle with that religion, because when you know gods are real, how do you cope with that? How do you not really cope with that, but how do you live with it? Knowing God is real, knowing there's someone with that who's omnipotent, we don't know. I mean, we have religion. There are hundreds of religions in our actual world, but none of them are proven to be true. Those religions are proven to be true just because, some of them are still alive. The Conjure is still alive. Harmony is still alive. Iron Eyes is still alive. And it's these mythological heroes, these religious heroes are real. And when something happens to you, you actually ask, what is God's plan with me? Why is he doing this to me? So it's very, very hard. They actively question everything and everyone. So yeah, it's weird, because you see Wax, he has actually talked to Harmony, he has spoken to Harmony, he has spoken to God, and still he says, why? Why are you doing this to me? Is he really omnipotent? It's so much to take in. Imagine if someday God actually spoke to you and says, all of it is real. God is real, hell is real, heaven is real, angels and demons are real, everything is real. It throws your world upside down. So it does coincide a bit with modern religion, because a lot of Christians actually are not that religious anymore. At least here in Europe, existence is questioned a lot. Even usefulness is actually questioned a lot. A lot of societies have actually become very secular, in which religion is not a part, is legally not even a part of the state. Considering, Brandon's point of view, I think it's on purpose that he wants us to think about this, because he himself is a highly devoted Christian. I think, Brandon's a Mormon. So yeah, he wants us to think about religion, because he feels that he probably feels that religion is something we all have to think about, we all have to speak about. And of course, question, maybe. But yeah, after that. Okay, so after that small rant, let's put it that way, I have to say I will always use a few set criteria to review a fantasy or sci-fi book. and that's the entertainment value, point one, which is one of the biggest necessities in a book. The characters, of course, the plot. Then there's the writing, so there's the voice, the tone of it, the prose, the sentence structure, stuff like that. The world building, which is essential in fantasy and sci-fi, and of course the finished product. You know, editing-wise, structure-wise, if there's any errors, stuff like that. So let's start. There's of course the entertainment value as part one. I think I give it a 7 out of 10. It's not a bad book, but it's not an amazing book either. I was intrigued, and I liked the story, but I was not at the edge of my seat. As usual though, with Sanderson, the last part was a wild ride. So he's a master of it. The entertainment value is it goes like this in the curve. It starts like that, goes up, stays the same, and then suddenly at the end it goes way up, it goes straight up. We also have, second point, the characters. As I've already said, I have not really invested myself in these characters. I don't really connect with them yet. Most of the characters were in archetype. The side characters were stereotypes even sometimes. I'm not in love with them. I think I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Just because of Wayne. Wayne is great. He's the sidekick, but he's a comedic relief. He has a serious note. I love Wayne. And I think most people will love Wayne more than they will like Wax. Of which Brandon is aware. He has actually mentioned that on one of his annotations, that he is aware that most people will love Wayne, but he wanted the story to be about Wax. So yeah, characters, 6.5 out of 10. Then there's the plot. This story is a good combination of magic, mystery, crime, and of course the western part. I'll give points for the combination alone because it's not that easy to pull off. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 as well. If only for, that combination and the inevitable Sanderlanche, as I have already mentioned, the entertainment value, because it was a wild ride. He's such a master of telling a story in a not really a slow way, but building up a story and then making it click all at once. So yeah, I couldn't give him, I couldn't bear to give him less than a 7 out of 10. I do consider Alloy of Law his least good work of all the ones I've read. I have yet to read Warbreaker, and I have yet to read Elantris. So as for now, this is actually at the bottom end. But still, 7 out of 10, not bad. I'm not going to take writing into account, just because it's a translation. I do think a lot of it goes lost in translation. I have read, for example, The Lord of the Rings in English and in Dutch. A lot goes lost. I have read what other book was it? Game of Thrones. I've read A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read the first 2 books in Dutch, and the rest of them I read in English, and then I actually have reread the first 2 books in English as well, and you don't believe how much is lost. A lot of puns, essentially, a lot of colloquialisms, and just some things that are conveyed differently as well. Some of the emotions, some of the swear words especially. It's very difficult. So on the one hand, I'll say, it's translated, not that good. But on the other hand, the lighter tone of this story was great. They actually did a very good job of capturing this lighter tone. Also, the characters' voices, very recognizable, even in translating. I have read Shadows of Self in the meantime, and I think even English, even Dutch, it's 50-50. They don't. I mean, English is always a little bit better because it's the original translation, but I think if there's 100%, 55 and 45 is a good division. The prose is something I will not be judging as well because of the translation. The pacing was great. That's in writing, so the pacing was amazing. You know, as I've already mentioned multiple times, he's a master of pacing. You know, there's a Sanderlanche, you know, all the puzzle pieces he throws around and hides during the books itself. It was good. And of course, the characters, they were great. The character voices were great. I mean, I only had to read a few words and I immediately knew, oh yeah, this is Wax, or this is Wayne, oh yeah, this is Marasi. If someone blushes, it's Marasi, always. That's something I did not enjoy, by the way. It was a kind of repetitive in some cases. As Marasi she blushed a lot. Yeah, we know Marasi blushes, and there's no need to tell us about 10,000 times in 7 pages. Every time she sees Wax, she blushes. Every time she gets a compliment, she blushes. That's okay. It's just I don't want to mention it every time, because after 4 times, okay, oh yeah, Marasi's seeing Wax. She must be blushing. She must be embarrassed. She must be, you know, because she has a secret crush on him. The same stuff with Wayne. He has this tendency to steal things and put something back that he thinks is of equal value. And the first 2, 3, 4 times, it's not really funny, but it gives a lighter tone to the situation. After he's done it, or when he's fiddling with something he took, we don't need to know, or we don't need to be told that, well, he took this and he put that. We know he probably put something in there which is not really relevant to the story. I think he should only do it when it's relevant to the story. So let's say, yeah, he took the bottle of whiskey and he left behind a cheap dagger, for example. Then later on, there's a fight scene in that same room, and then Wayne grabs that dagger, which he left behind. That will be interesting. But alas, it's done a lot, and I get why he does it, because, you know, repetition creates connection and helps us remember. But if it's too much, it's becoming annoying. If Wax and Wayne was 1,000 pages, we'd get 1,000 repetitions. Luckily, it's not that big of a book. Then there's, of course, world building. That's amazing. Everybody knows Sanderson is a master at world building as well. But I don't give it a 10 out of 10, actually. Just because I give it a 9.5. The only thing lacking, which I've already mentioned, is the actual terrace people living in Ellendale, and Wax is part of it. It does not get fleshed out. I don't even think he meets them. I'm not sure. I can't even remember, so that tells a lot. But yeah, the Mistborn world is the old world and the new world are very well built. The magic system is incredibly well built. I think 9.5 out of 10 is reasonable, to put it that way. And of course, the finished product, I give that an 8 out of 10, just because I didn't think it was perfect. It was in Dutch, so there's a lot of translation stuff that don't go along well. I did not like any I did not see any typos, so that's a big thing. But there were some grammatical, not really errors, but because of the translation, they did not really fit into the bigger paragraph, the bigger page. There were some sentences that threw me off even. But otherwise, you know, structure-wise, it was perfect because, well, yeah, they didn't have to do anything. It's just translated. But the actual English editors did a very good job of it. Editing-wise, it was. I won't say it was perfect, but it was good. It was good enough to have an 8 out of 10. And the end result is 7.6 out of 10. I don't think that's bad. I think that's very good even. Being his least good work, which I've already said, 7.6 out of 10. I don't think that's bad. Next video, the sequel, Shadows of Self. I have finished it already, and I think it's better. I'll let you think about what that means. But in the meantime, have a good day. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. See ya!